fantastic to see so many people. It says a year on, the conference, and it's a year on for me because it was a year ago last week that I was elected to be Police and Crime Commissioner. And the CVS has very kindly organised this conference in February, and I think it was organised around Police and Crime Commissioners, so you could tell us, you who do so much great work in the voluntary sector, could tell the incoming Police and Crime Commissioners kind of what you want from us, and you could see us and get to know us. And it was a tremendous event. It was here in February, I think was the last one. It was a really good day, and I felt then, at the end of the day, we really must do this again, and we shouldn't wait a year. So it's a year on for me, not quite a year on since the last meeting, but I recognise many faces, and during this year I've got to know many of you very well. I'm not going to talk for the full time. Ian is keen that we do have a bit of time for questions, and I know that there are many of you here who give me quite a hard time kind of week by week as we meet around the county, and I hope you'll do the same again today. So I'll talk for maybe 10, 15 minutes if I get it right, and leave some time for questions. For me, this is one of the most important meetings I can imagine that I do during the course of the year. Those of you who've got to know me, I hope, know that I believe really passionately in what you're all doing. And so the first thing for me to say is a big thank you for the difference that you all make. I've got to know so many of you right around the county, working in so many different areas. And what you do is really important. So thank you. You know, there just aren't enough opportunities, I think, sometimes for people to say that. And here I am, elected by people in Essex, or some people in Essex, elected to do my job, but on their behalf, you know, thanks for what you do. It's about partnership, isn't it? Those of you who've heard me speak before, I talk about my priorities. They're about making policing local. My principal job is to hold the Chief Constable to account to deliver the policing we need. But, you know, I've very quickly realised, well before the election, that if we're going to make a difference to crime across Essex, and as I speak, as I'm catching the eye of people from Southend and Thurrock, indulge me by letting me say Essex includes Southend and Thurrock. For me, it always has, always will. You know, it's been really important for me to learn about that partnership. We must make a difference to crime. If we just leave it to the police to clear up the mess afterwards, we're in exactly the wrong place. We have to do everything we can to try and make, you know, our communities, our societies safer, friendlier, more caring, more compassionate, prepared to help each other out, and to eat away, to dig away at those things that cause harm. And we all know what they are. That alcohol, it's mental health challenges, it's drugs, it's youngsters carrying knives, it's young people not being given the opportunities to do what so many of our young people do so well, which is have a great time and contribute. But those who are on the fringes, stop them getting involved in crime so we can stop youth offending, which we all know is so important. And those partnerships are about all of you here. So there are police officers here, and from the fire service, and let's have a shout out for the fire service who do so much good work through their prevention activities. So we've got the youth organisations, we've got the councils, both at county and at district and local level. And most importantly, we've got the voluntary sector, because you do so much of the delivery that we rely on. And I've seen it as my role, really, to try and provide some leadership in that space. You know, time will tell how well we can do it, but I will do my best, and I'll commit to that for the rest of the time that I'm Police and Crime Commissioner, for providing those opportunities for partnership. They make such a big difference. The Police and Crime Plan that's out there, it's not actually the refreshed version, it is the first version of the plan, but we're now working on next year's version. So today is really about you. It's about you working together to let me have the feedback about what you need and want to see in next year's Police and Crime Plan. What do you want my priorities to be? Where do you want me spending my time? Where do you want me spending my effort and my money to try and make the roles that you do more effective? And I really, really, really want your feedback from today. This isn't not sort of idle chat. I've got a lot of my team here today, and thank you to all the teams, my team working with CVSs who've done so much to set up today. A lot of my team are here today. We'll be capturing all the feedback we can. Every bit of feedback you can give us about what's working well, what's not working well, where are the gaps, what should we be doing that we're not doing, how can we do things better. We must have that. Today is a brilliant opportunity to share that thinking, develop it together, and feed it back so that we can get it embedded in next year's Police and Crime Plan. I focus, and those of you who know the priorities, you know, I talk about local policing. That's a given. I'm talking about victims. We must do more for victims. Next year, I take on important new responsibilities for commissioning all victim services across Essex. That probably won't happen until halfway through the year, but all the money that's currently spent, most of the money currently spent essentially from central government, will come to me to spend on victim support services across Essex. We must get that right. As many of you know, I set up the New Initiatives Fund, and many thanks to Lindsay, my deputy, who's going to be running most of today. I set up that New Initiatives Fund on a bit of a wing and a prayer. We said, let's try and capture £500,000 from the police budget and spend it on crime prevention rather than clearing up the mess after crime. We did it in a pretty, not rough and ready, but we designed the process pretty quickly. We knew there were a lot of risks around it, but thank you for all of those of you who've responded so well, those of you who bid for money, those of you who've received money, thank you for the feedback on the process. Please give us even more of that if you can. I'm sure you would say to me, give us more of the money. So for next year, I am going to try to preserve all of the money that we, again, have had this year. We said last year, if you got money last year, then you can have it this year. And I'm going to do everything I can to ensure you get at least as much next year as you got this year. It's going to be very tight, budgets are getting more and more constrained, but unless we really commit to this with money as well as good words, then we're not going to make a difference. You all know that, I all know that, and I'm going to do the very best I can. So that, again, why that feedback is so important. I think that the plan which you've seen, we had to publish that, I think, in about week 10 that I was Police and Crime Commissioner. Again, a huge amount of effort went into it to get it right. And you know, I think I'm actually quite proud of it. It may not be brilliant, but it's not bad. And I don't think we got many of the priority areas wrong. I think if I was saying what have we not got quite right, I don't think we've given quite enough space to some of the challenges around mental health. I think I want to identify those challenges separately next year rather than wrapping them up with alcohol and drugs. Of course, as you know better than I do, there are some strong linkages across those agendas. But I think we want to look at the mental health agenda slightly differently. The other thing for next year I want to do differently, and probably we'll start that before the end of this financial year, is invest more in education. So many of you know, actually I suspect all of you know, that the best thing we can do is get involved in the schools earlier. The story I told, and some of you have heard it before, and I apologise, I told it at the AGM of Open Road here at the AGM in Colchester earlier. I told the story of Red Crisis, SOS, the South End Red Crisis Centre, who I've got to know, and I was having a catch-up session with them recently. They told me that they were seeing so many young rape victim referrals, 14, 15-year-olds, that they decided to hire an outreach worker to work in the schools in Southend to try and get at some of the younger girls, and boys actually, because it's about boys' behaviour. It's a lot about boys' behaviour. So they hired an outreach worker to work in the schools, and in those first programme of work, they identified, in fact, they got over 80 new referrals of young girls, 13, 14-year-olds, who had already suffered inappropriate sexual behaviour and rapes. Much younger sexual activity in schools, 11, 12, 13-year-olds. There are people not understanding about risky behaviours. There's some fairly shocking stuff. And I'm very clear in my mind we need to do more at our schools in year 6 at top, junior, and year 7 at secondary. And we need to go in with consolidated messaging about where are the risks, how can young people learn to avoid those risky behaviours, how can they stay away from the wide range of risks that are there, so graphically illustrated in Southend. So more on mental health, more on education next year. Otherwise, I don't think I want to change too much of the agenda. I talked about commissioning victim services. We're also going to be playing a large role with the transforming rehabilitation agenda. Police and crime commissioners are being expected to get very involved in that space. And again, you all know that trying to grab those people who've been through the criminal justice system, to give them the chance of avoiding going back to crime, is absolutely crucial if we're going to make a difference to our societies. So we're going to work very hard to shape the transforming rehabilitation agenda in Essex so that we get the best results we possibly can. And you all know that that's going to involve lots of you in that space. We have to do as much as we can to tackle reoffending of all sorts, and youth reoffending in particular. I'm there to challenge them, but I'm also there to support them. And in Essex Police, I think we've got a really terrific police service, and I hope all of you enjoy working with them. And if ever you're not getting the service, the cooperation you need, let me know. That doesn't happen much, because I know you'll get great response. And I'm terrifically, I'm looking around for Luke. Where are you? Put your hand up, Luke. You're somewhere. Thank you. Right at the back, Chief Superintendent Luke Collison, who's the LK commander for the south of the district, but also leading on the crime prevention agenda. Luke's been fantastically energetic this year. Thank you for what you've done. Thank you for what all of your teams have done. I will stop to hopefully allow some questions. I just want to make two final points. Firstly, to reinforce the point that workshops today really matter. We're taking them very seriously, and I hope they're in the right space in victims, in talking about domestic abuse. This week is Domestic Abuse Week. Courtesy of tendering, I've got my white ribbon back on. I actually made one earlier in the week, but it frayed so badly. I must learn to cut ribbons better. Thank you for that. But domestic abuse must remain, for me, a real priority. So victims, youth offending and domestic abuse. I need your feedback, I need your learning, I need your input and your drive from those. But I want to talk slightly about the longer term. This isn't just about this year and next year and the year after. The Chief Constable and I, as we meet week by week, are saying we must deliver the best policing we can across the county for this year and next year. But what are we doing about 5 years ahead? What are we doing about 10 years ahead? You all know that building those communities and strengthening those communities is vital to the long-term agenda. As you go about your work year in year, I know you're probably all facing huge challenges for funding year on year, but please do everything you can to think about what's this work going to look like in 5 years' time? What's it going to look like in 10 years' time? And I'm exploring with the Essex Community Foundation, how can we build up a long-term fund so that we have got funds set aside. So as we put our money into this year's work, yes, let's please think about the future. You know, all of us working with young people, we know they're our future. Let's do everything we can to make sure our organisations are built in a way that's sustainable and that we support our communities in a way that's sustainable. I've probably said too much. I'm looking over my crib sheet. I think I've covered on all the areas that I wanted to touch on. Thank you for what you all do. Volunteering, and many of you are volunteers, many of you are paid, but volunteering has to be another theme. You've got the great opportunity to attract, to train, to really involve and give the same passion to a next generation as many of you have had. Thank you for what you do. Thank you for today. I'm looking forward to seeing the outcomes. And I'm very keen to be challenged and ask some difficult questions. Thanks.
You said in your speech that you were very keen to make sure that people who were successful in getting funding this year also get funding next year. And then you also said obviously the pot is shrinking, which we know. But what about the organisations that are there or that are coming through that will also be coming to you for next year? There's a sense that it could become a little bit of a closed, don't take this wrong way, but a closed shop. But there's always got to be opportunity for other people to come in and secure new funding for new projects.
No, thank you. My hand up. I think I know that we have, from my office, we've underweighted our involvement with the community safety partnerships this year. I think it was my enthusiasm to get out and get involved with all the voluntary groups that I think I took for granted, and I shouldn't have done, and I'm sorry. I took for granted some of the really great work that goes on in the community safety partnerships. It was that money in particular I wanted to say, if you've had it, you'll have the same again next year, and possibly even a bit more. I've got some ideas about that. For the new initiatives fund, that £500,000, that won't necessarily go to the same people. If people want to bid again, that may be possible. We did make up the rules. We haven't made up the rules for next year yet. But some of that's got off to some really great stuff. If it's been really successful, we might redo it. But of course, we want new money coming in. And we also want to think about where can we find other sources of money. I haven't thought much about contact with the commercial sector. We ought to be building those partnerships with those people who are very keen to support worthy causes. Thanks for letting me clarify. Please, Anna.
Previously, the Ministry of Justice was supporting victims of crime where murder and manslaughter was concerned. There seems to be an intimation that may be coming to the local PCCs. If that is the case, which I'm hoping you can confirm otherwise. How will that work where organisations that work locally and also nationally will access funding, because we have an overlap there? And maybe perhaps the overseeing people that look after the whole of the PCCs may have a view on that.
Yeah. I think getting money to us locally in Essex to spend in Essex is actually a really good idea. I don't know what, have some chat about it during the day. For me to have oversight of all the money that's spent, I think is probably quite a good idea, because we can make sure it's spent sensibly. I'm being waved at. Lindsay's going to come in just a second.
I just wanted to try a little bit, if you wanted to, Nick, on the homicide. The homicide funding remains coming directly from the Ministry of Justice. That's not coming to the PCCs.
Okay, that's great, thank you.
So, and I think there will be issues like that. Let's something out the detail, and the money's not going to get to us probably till about October next year. For those who haven't met him, we will be commissioning quite a lot of stuff. Greg, do you want to stand up just briefly? So my new head of commissioning, he's going to be the guy giving out the money. So, you know, draw your own conclusions from that. Greg, nice to have you on the team starting in the new year.
Greg, Colchester SOS Bus needs money. It's here today. It's in the car park. Everybody go and see it. Where's Wayne from Open Road? They're all at the back. We need money for Colchester SOS Bus to continue. It's doing a fantastic job, as you may have seen on the television recently. Nick, Lord Stephen's report came out this week. I presume you don't agree with his recommendation to get rid of police and crime commissioners, but are there aspects of his report that you found interesting and that you would agree with and would want to see aspects of them introduced?
He's like Lord Stevens, former Commissioner of Metropolitan Police, who's published a report commissioned by the Labour Party to look at police and crime commission. It's missed the boat. I think it's missed the boat, but there's some great stuff in it actually. To be fair, there is some really good stuff in it. Lord Stevens himself, I knew him quite well. He's actually not said do away with police and crime. He's come out publicly since and said it's been misinterpreted. There is some really good stuff. The really good stuff in it is about the local agenda and saying let's make localism really come alive. Let's make sure we keep a really good, strong neighbourhood presence and a neighbourhood feeling to our policing, and I really believe in that. We can have a talk offline about some of the other things. There is some good reading in it, but you know, the 24-page management summary, if anybody wants to have a look at this, bits of it are great. I'm being waved at.
BBC Essex are waiting to interview yourself and Caroline Shearer about this conference, just to spread the good news.
Okay. Well, I'm not supposed to be here this afternoon, but I think I might come back. It's clearly going to be such a good day. If I can get back this afternoon, I will get back. Thank you, everybody, for what you do. Once again, please have some great debate today. Please put your ideas in. You're open to criticism, open to if we've done anything right, tell us. But if we've done something wrong, even more important, tell us. Thank you very much indeed, and have a great day. Thank you.